Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, this is a very quick reminder about wealth and its correlation to happiness and success. So the question is, if you get a lot of wealth, or if somebody offers you financial freedom, if somebody says to you that if you get this much money, then you should be successful and you should be happy. Is that the case? Okay, we're going to look at it from the Quran. Okay, the first and foremost thing is that nowhere in the Quran, anywhere, has Allah Azza wa Jal said that success is with having X amount of wealth. Nowhere in the Quran. In fact, the Quran has actually warned us again and again about wealth and the damage that it can do, because wealth has been identified as one of those things that can remove you from Allah Azza wa Jal, and it can divert you from the akhirah, from your real life. So wealth is something which, if you look at there's nothing wrong in earning wealth, but the Quran has reminded us we've got responsibilities when you've got wealth. So, you've got to give your zakah, you've got to give your sadaqah, you've got to look after others, you've got to look after the yatim, you've got to look after, the Quran is always talking about giving away wealth. The Quran is not saying, it wants us to earn a lot of wealth. Now, look, livelihood is something which is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Quran does ask us to go and there and seek a livelihood. That's fine. But the Quran asks us to be careful, because the people normally who go and get a lot of wealth or go and try and get rich, they usually fall into trouble. We're not saying everyone falls into trouble, but they usually can fall into trouble. Now, here's the thing that the Quran does. Now, this is going to be something which I really want you to understand, because people out there are thinking, well, once I get this much wealth, or once I've got this financial freedom, then I've got success and I've got happiness. Success and happiness are things that Allah Azza wa Jal has kept in other things, right? There are correlations which Allah Azza wa Jal has built in the Quran. So I'm going to give you the verses, and I'm going to quote to you, okay, the exact words what Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Holy Quran. Okay, because people think that, if you've got one, you've got the other. If you look in Surah Furqan, okay, Surah Furqan, which is Surah number 25, okay, Surah number 25, and ayah number 43, all right, ayah number 43. So what you find in ayah number 40, Surah Furqan, which is 25, ayah number 43, is Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who has taken his God to be his passions and his desires, his pleasure? Basically, his pleasures have become his central part of his life. Allah Azza wa Jalla reprimands such a person in the Holy Quran. Now, the Quran also talks about people who start to follow their desires. Okay, now hawa is the word that's used. Hawa is your pleasures, your ego, your whims, and your desires. Okay, and Allah has again and again negatively spoken about these things. Pleasures are okay as long as they are in a halal way and limited. So, for example, you want the pleasure of being with the opposite gender. Well, the nikah is there, and you have it in a limited way. You want the pleasure of having, let's say, food. You've got to have food in due proportion, and it can't be something which is. It can't be something which goes into israf. Allah said, "Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu." You can eat, you can drink. That's a pleasure, but Allah has said, "Wa la tusrifu." Don't go beyond the limits, because then you're following your hawa. Now look at the correlation Allah Azza wa Jalla uses. He uses one's ego, passions, desires with something that is negative, something that you can't be successful with. Where does Allah Azza wa Jalla use the happiness? Okay, something which is contentment, because happiness is when you're content in the long term. So in the Holy Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He links happiness with the qalb. He links it with the heart. Okay, so the heart does not have anything to do with trying to accumulate a lot of wealth. The heart is something where iman is stored, dhikr is stored, the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal is stored. So I'll give you the exact reference of this as well. This is in the 13th juz of the Holy Quran. It's in Surah Ar-Ra'd, Surah number 13, And Allah Azza wa Jalla has mentioned this in ayah number 28. Okay, Allah says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla has said, those who believe and their hearts are content with the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. Only through the dhikr or the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal can hearts be content, and that content means it's a fulfillment of a happiness you can get. It's a long-term happiness that you can get. Now look at what Allah Azza wa Jal has done. He's connected the heart with happiness. He's connected desires with pleasure. Okay, again in the Quran you will find this. Okay, now let's now bring these two things with wealth. What happens when a person gets a lot of wealth, or you get financial freedom, or you get a lot that you got, with you? What can easily happen is, if right now, look, think about this. If you're poor right now, or if you're average, or you're below average, or you're above average, or you're rich. So you got 5 categories. Okay, you either say you're poor, or you're in the middle, or you say you're rich, or you say you're above average or below average, whatever you are, whichever state you are. If you're a person whose heart is content, right, with something which is permanent. This is the key thing about this verse. It's really deep. Okay, Surah number 13, ayah number 28. Allah has said your heart can only be content with the remembrance of Allah. Why? Because Allah is the only being and the only thing ever that will last for eternity. There is nothing else. There's nothing else that we have in this dunya that can last forever. So if you attach your heart to something that is temporary, you can never be happy in the long term. That's what Allah is saying. If you connect your heart with something or someone, let's say you connect it with a person, and that person is going to die eventually. So if you connect your heart with your wife, with your husband, with your children, with your family, whatever, friends, whatever, you can never be happy, because your friends and you have to break off at one point. Your relationship has to break off one point. If you connect your heart with a thing or an item or money or assets or gold or silver, whatever, you can never be happy in the long term. You can temporarily be happy, but you can never be happy long term, because these things are going to perish and they're going to be gone. The only way the human can ever be happy is to connect it with the eternal. And that is Allah Azza wa Jal, with the akhirah, with the afterlife, which is something that's never going to end. Okay, so that's what you've got to understand. Now let's get back to a person who gets a lot of wealth. What is likely to happen to you? The first thing is, you've got money. If you're of the 5 categories I just said, poor, average, rich, or in between, all right, in between there. If you're one of those, if your heart is already with Allah, it doesn't matter which notch you put yourself up to or down to, whether you were rich and you become poor, or whether you're poor or you become rich, whichever way you go down these 5 stages, you are still happy and you will be successful. Okay? But if you have got your desires, or your hawa, your passions, your whims, your pleasures that are in play, they're the things that drive you. Okay, your heart's not attached to Allah properly, or it's kind of weakly attached to Allah, but your passions and pleasures and desires and all of that are making you do things. Then no matter which one of these places you're in, you're going to have trouble. In fact, the most trouble you're going to have is when you become rich. Think about it. When you're poor, you haven't got that much money to splash out onto your pleasures, onto your whims and desires. You haven't got enough money. So you're still in a bad state, because your pleasures and desires are always continuously, moving you forward. But what happens is that you're not going that much astray, because you haven't got that much money. The moment you got money, like for example, let me give you an example. I know some brothers who've told me this themselves, okay? They never had money before. Suddenly they got a job, they got money, and they started to get some extra monies, and they would fly out to Morocco, okay, on a weekend, or they'll fly out to Dubai, and they'll go to a hotel, okay, for the weekend. So they'll fly out on a Friday night, they'll come back on a Sunday night, so they've got 2 days more or less out there, and they're back to work on a Monday morning. And what they'll do is they'll fulfill their carnal desires, their haram desires. They'll fulfill that on a 2-day trip. okay, have a smashing, whatever haram. I'm saying smashing according to them, not according to me, but they will have their own pleasurous smashing time, fulfill the carnal desires, commit the harams, okay, and you know what I'm talking about, going to hotels and seeing opposite genders and all that, and they'll fulfill all that and they'll come back. Okay, why did they do that? Would they have done that if they never had the extra money? Most likely not, because you have to spend some monies to go out there and do it. Now that's just one example. I can give you tens and tens of examples of people who've spoken to me that, look, when you look at the people who are poor and can fulfill their desires, it's less in comparison to the people who are rich. So the key question here is, if somebody ever says to you that, come onto this, this thing that I've got for you, and I'm going to make you be free of want and this and this and that, and I'm going to make you super rich, or make you rich at least, okay? Is he going to make you, or is his whatever he's got going to make you successful or happy? Most likely not, if you haven't dealt with what's going on inside you. If your carnal desires, if your ego, if your pleasures are in play by exceeding Allah's limits already, when you get money, you are going to go beyond the limits. Yesterday, if you were basically doing a bit of like haram on, let's say, social media or searching on the internet, and you're looking at things with your eyes that are haram for you, then tomorrow you're going to go and hire the people in real person to fulfill those desires. If yesterday you were playing the lottery at £1 or playing the lottery at £10, tomorrow when you get money, okay, you're going to play real casino, poker, gambling. And guess what? Brothers have actually said this to me. There are brothers who are in contact with me and they've said they need to stop this. They need to stop themselves because they've got money. They're rich. Mashallah, if you look at these brothers, mashallah, they're praying. They're successful in our eyes. Like mashallah, guy's got a house, guy's got this, guy's got cars, guy's got good company and whatever it is, okay? I'm not going to give you any names or anything like that, but alhamdulillah, mashallah, I'm trying to help them get out of their problem that they're in. Okay, it is what it is, which is what's going on inside you. If inside you everything is now good, you've got taqwa, then yes, when you get more money, then inshallah you keep that taqwa and you go down, you keep on a taqwa route. It's not easy. It's not easy. Even people with taqwa can lose their ways from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and they can go astray. So what I've done in this very short reminder is, anyone comes to you and says to you they're going to give you financial freedom and you're going to be, you're going to be super, you know what they kind of tell you is once you got money, you can do what you like. Basically, you don't have to go through this rat race or go through this or that. You're free to choose what you want to do. But this is the problem. Freedom could be the problem with most people who haven't sorted their qalb out, who haven't sorted the heart out, whose passions and desires are free to do things. And another thing is that because a lot of these brothers or maybe sisters as well don't know the Sharia, they don't know what dangers they can get into. Like I'll tell you about sisters, okay? If a sister gets financial freedom, if she becomes more rich than her husband, okay, it could happen the other way around. And brothers have done this, sisters have done this, brothers. With that financial freedom, they could start, looking at the spouses, who are you? What are you? I've got more money. The attitude can come with it. Quran has spoken about that the people of wealth have had more of an attitude than the people who are poor. It's in the Quran. Look at the word mutraf. Look in the word, anywhere you find the word mutrafin, people who've been given an extended amount of wealth by Allah Azza wa Jal, they're the ones who have been the most critical of the prophets, and they made mockery of the prophets, and they've gone against the wahi and the revelations that have been brought down. So again, what you see in the Quran is that there's more risk of you going astray with money than without money. Okay, now if somebody says to you, look, this is the last thing I want to say, and I want you to really think about this. If somebody says your kid is spoiled, or your kid is not doing this, he's probably failing his exams, and your kid is not to do, he's not listening to you, he's probably getting into gangs, whatever, or maybe he's just not performing well in school, and he's going to head for a real bad life in the 20s because he's not going to get a good job, and he's most likely going to fail fail in life. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you to make your child's future, in a way that he's financially free, and inshallah he will get all of that and he's going to be successful. Now you should be able to work out right now what the problem is with that. If the kid is spoiled, if the kid already has a problem of not listening to his elders, not doing his work, not doing his homework, because his pleasures and desires are play. You work it out from what I've just said, okay? Qalb is not attached to akhirah, Allah, anything, okay? Desires and pleasure is attached to the dunya. That kid, or the parents of that child, if they make something and they say, here son, look, you don't have to work anymore, you don't have to, do exams anymore, you don't have to go through what everybody else is going through, we're just going to give you, we're going to make you financial freedom. We're going to make you do this, whatever it is, and then after that you're going to be really, rich, and you're going to have, a settled life. And, there are certain people, I don't know why they're doing this, they're making their children get into business in their teenagers. Why on earth would you want to do that without look, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in, the Quran and everything talks about, they worked on sabr, they worked on taqwa, they worked on tawakkul, okay, patience, you need that for life, you need tawakkul on Allah, depending on Allah Azza wa Jal. You need qana'a, which is contentment, you need itminan, for your qalb and for your heart. You need to have, these are the ingredients that the Sahaba gave their children radiallahu anhu ajma'in. You look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba, did they say, okay, we're going to make our children financially free and make you mega rich? Because once you're mega rich, we're gonna basically make a difference to the whole world. They did not do that. In fact, the Quran said, Jahidu bi amwalikum wa anfusikum. Again and again and again. Possibly, I don't know, maybe 50 or more than 50 times Allah said in the Holy Quran, Jahidu bi amwalikum wa anfusikum. Sacrifice your wealth. Sacrifice your desires. Sacrifice yourselves for the sake of Allah. So that means give it away. Sacrifice. You got it? Give it away. That's what Allah is saying. That's what success is with. That's what, real long-term happiness is with. Now, if you're going to get that child or any child who hasn't got a success route in education, and you're going to give them a financial build-up so that they can be independently free by the time they get into 20s, you are going to most likely completely ruin that child's life. Mark my words. Why? Because you're saying your carnal desires are already driving you nuts. Okay? And I'm going to give you loads of money so you don't have to have any more worries. You know what that child's going to do? He's going to take that money, all right? And he's going to spend it on his desires. Okay? Listen to this. Any rich person, okay, they've done studies on rich people and they've seen whether the rich people are able to contain their wealth within their own, progeny, their children, okay. What they've found is, these are real studies that have happened with people who become rich. So let's say, for example, you're a generation, your parents, and you become rich, or you make it, you make it somewhere. Should you basically create a something in your family, all your children are financially free and they don't have to work anymore? They found out that any rich set of parents that have done that for their children, and the children didn't have to work, they didn't have to go through the chores of life and learn the very things we had to life to become rich, they, within one generation, they blew up the whole money. All the money was more or less gone. 90% of the wealth of the parents was brought down because these children didn't know how to manage the monies. They had the monies, they didn't work like us, they didn't study like us, they never went through the difficulties we went through to try and get some monies, okay? And you just hand it over to your children just like that without them having the struggle. You know what they did? They blew it. They became poor. Within 2 generations, they were finished, okay? And they did studies of those rich people who never gave wealth to their children, but they made them go through struggles. So this is what Warren Buffett or anyone else out there, who's really rich and who's got his head screwed on, this is what they're going to do. They will basically have the monies, they'll probably put it aside in an account for their children, and they'll put things in to say, our children can't touch this money unless they become X, Y, and Z. Unless they go through these struggles, they actually make struggles for them. I mean, normal thing, they'd want them to go through college, university, get degrees and blah, blah. And when they earn a certain thing or amount, you know what they do? They make them go through certain parts of life, certain countries, make them live there, help charities, do things like, the small things like Duke of Edinburgh or something. They'll make them do things on a higher scale of that to make them know what life is. So when they're like 30 something, then there'll be a lawyer that will have the funds available for the child, okay? The dad's probably dead by now. The lawyer will say, okay, show me that you've achieved all these things in your life, that you've got a degree, that you've been to these countries, that you've done these things, okay? Fine, tick box, tick box, tick box. Okay, now these funds are going to be released to you. That's a smart way of making your children maintain the richness in your family, because what you've done is you've worked on the akhlaq, the character, the inner, okay? You made sure that their passions and desires are not making them, making them be driven by their own egos, okay? That's key, that's crucial. So anyone who's ever coming to you and saying, you parents, we're going to help you by making your children financially independent, they're mucking your life up. They're going to muck that kid's life up. And if you're a parent that's going to go down that route and just take down, let's sign up to this, and let's just say we're going to make our children free, because they're not going to get anywhere in life anyway, so let's just give them loads of money, whatever. I tell you one thing, right? The nafs, if you haven't sorted that out, you're a dead man, you're a dead woman. It's going to kill you. That nafs will kill you. The more money you give it, the more it will kill you. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us tawfiq to practice what I've just said. And as a summary, I want to say that success that Allah Azza wa Jalla has said is never been attached to anything that is something that's going to end quickly. Okay, you look in the Quran, Surah number 23, ayah number 1, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Success, Allah has said, are those people who have got devotion in their salah. What does that mean? That means the qalb is with Allah. The heart has itminan with Allah. They're completely devoted. That's why Allah says success. You look in the Quran, Allah has said, in the Holy Quran, Surah Ali Imran, okay, Surah Ali Imran, Allah Azza wa Jalla has said a beautiful, verse. And he said, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. Okay, whosoever has been able to make themselves be removed from the fire of hell and be entered into Jannah, they are successful. Look, check this out, Surah number 3, ayah number 185. That's success, my friends. That's success, okay? Nowhere in the Quran Allah has said you earn X amount, become rich, whatever, you're successful. And I really want you to take that on, because people should not be, giving you the wrong information of what our deen is. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.